I, 45 farads, just discovered that my best friend of 15 years has been having an affair with my husband, and her 3 children are actually his. My world has been turned upside down, and I'm struggling to cope with this devastating betrayal. My best friend and I go way back to our high school days. We were the misfits, the girls who never quite found their place in the usual cliques. But we found a home in each other's company. We shared everything, our wildest dreams, our deepest fears, and what I thought were our most guarded secrets. We weathered every storm together, from her impulsive marriage at 19, which everyone, myself included, cautioned her against, to her subsequent divorce just 18 months later. When she tied the knot again at 23, I was right there by her side, cheering her on. It was at this wedding that I met the man who would become my husband. He was a close friend of her new husband, and we connected instantly. Our whirlwind romance led to a proposal just 8 months later, and I didn't hesitate to say yes. It felt like the stars had aligned, and everything was falling into place. My best friend was expecting her first child around the time we set our wedding date. We even pushed back our big day a bit so she could comfortably fit into her bridesmaid dress post-delivery. Looking back now, I can't help but wonder if that was the beginning of the deception. For years, life seemed picture perfect. I adored my best friend's children as if they were my own. Due to some medical issues and emotional trauma from my childhood, I had decided not to have children of my own. My husband had always been incredibly supportive of this decision, never once expressing disappointment or resentment. He had such a wonderful relationship with my best friend's kids that I felt they filled that potential void in both our lives. Throughout all of this, I was focused on building my career as a lawyer. Balancing work and personal relationships was challenging, but I managed to make it work. My best friend chose to be a stay-at-home mom, and I often found myself envying her ability to be there for her children 24/7. But I loved my job, the intellectual stimulation it provided, and the sense of accomplishment that came with each successful case. Everything was sailing smoothly until last week when I received a frantic call from my best friend. She was sobbing uncontrollably, saying she couldn't go on living. Alarmed, I dropped everything at work and rushed to her houses. I found her in a state I had never seen before, lying on the floor, makeup smeared across her face, the house is in complete disarray. After much coaxing, she finally showed me what had triggered this breakdown: a positive pregnancy test, her 3rd child. Initially, I was overjoyed, hugging her tightly and wondering why this wonderful news had caused such distress. That's when she revealed the crushing truth. Her husband had left her. Apparently, they had been having issues for months, and he had finally packed his bags and walked out. He promised to send divorce papers and provide child support, but made it clear that their relationship was over. My heart ached for her. I decided to stay with her and the kids for a while, especially since my husband was away on a business trip to Chicago for the week. He seemed surprisingly okay with this arrangement, which, in hindsight, should have been a red flag. I kept pressing my best friend for more details about why her marriage had suddenly fallen apart. From my perspective, they had always seemed like the perfect couple. She gave vague answers about her husband becoming distant, not wanting to be around her, and even moving to the guest bedroom. Anger welled up inside me at the thought of her husband treating her this way, especially given her condition. When the divorce papers arrived, I called my husband and asked him to talk to her husband about the situation. I couldn't fathom how he could abandon his family like this, especially with another child on the way. My husband assured me he'd speak to him as soon as he returned from his Chicago trip, but something about my husband's reaction felt off. There was an underlying tone of relief. I tried to dismiss it as my imagination running wild due to the stressful situation, but the nagging feeling persisted. A few days later, while helping my best friend sort through some divorce-related paperwork, I noticed her becoming increasingly agitated as her phone kept buzzing with incoming messages. When she excused herself to use the bathroom, curiosity got the better of me. I know I shouldn't have, but I glanced at her phone. What I saw made my blood run cold. There were messages from my husband, intimate, loving messages that made it crystal clear that this was no recent development. With trembling hands, I scrolled through their conversation history. Years. This affair had been going on for years. I felt like the ground had disappeared from beneath my feet. The room started spinning, and I thought I might be sick. When my best friend returned and saw me with her phone, she knew instantly that I had discovered their secret. She broke down, confessing everything between heart-wrenching sobs. The affair had begun shortly after her second marriage. My husband, the man I had trusted implicitly, the man I had built a life with, was the biological father of all three of her children, the boys I had loved as my own, whom I had babysat countless times, whose birthdays I had celebrated year after year. They were my husband's sons. I couldn't breathe. 15 years of friendship, 10 years of marriage, all of it built on a foundation of lies and betrayal. I left her houses in a daze, deaf to her pleas and apologies. I drove aimlessly for hours, my mind a chaotic whirlwind of memories, each one now tainted by this earth-shattering revelation. Every shared holiday, every double date, every intimate conversation where I had confided in her about my marriage. Had it all been a farce? When I finally returned home, I found my husband waiting for me. He had come back early from his business trip. One look at my face told him that I had uncovered their secret. What followed was the most agonizing conversation of my life. He attempted to explain, to apologize, but his words rang hollow. How could he possibly justify years of deception? How could he rationalize betraying not just me, but also his friend, my best friend's husband? I told him to leave. I couldn't bear to look at him, to breathe the same air as him. He left without much resistance, perhaps knowing that there was nothing he could say or do to make this right. Now, I sit alone in what was once our home, trying to make sense of the wreckage of my life. Everything I thought I knew feels like a lie. The two people I trusted most in this world have betrayed me in the cruelest way imaginable. I feel lost, angry, and utterly devastated. I'm at a loss for what to do next. Should I file for divorce immediately? Should I reach out to my best friend's husband, who must be going through his own personal hell right now? And what about the children? They're innocent in all of this, but I don't know if I can bear to see them, knowing what I know now. I've always prided myself on being a strong, independent woman. I've built a successful career, overcome numerous challenges, and thought I could handle anything life threw my way. But this feels insurmountable. How do you even begin to rebuild your life when the very foundation it was built on turns out to be a lie? I'm grappling with so many emotions: betrayal, anger, sadness, and a profound sense of loss. I feel like I've not only lost my husband and my best friend, but also a part of myself. The future I had envisioned, the plans we had made together, the trust I had in both of them, it's all gone in the blink of an eye. I keep replaying moments from the past decade in my head, searching for signs I might have missed. Were there clues that I overlooked? Should I have noticed something was amiss? The guilt and self-doubt are overwhelming. I find myself questioning every memory, every interaction, wondering what was real and what was part of their elaborate deception. The betrayal feels even more acute when I think about the children. I had loved them as if they were my own, and now I learn that they actually are, in a way. But the joy that might have come with such a revelation is completely overshadowed by the circumstances. I feel robbed of the chance to be their mother, to have known from the beginning that they were my husband's children. I'm also struggling with feelings of inadequacy and self-blame. Was it my decision not to have children that drove my husband to this betrayal? Did my focus on my career somehow contribute to this? I know, rationally, that nothing justifies their actions, but I can't help these thoughts from creeping in. The loneliness is perhaps the most challenging aspect to deal with. I've always turned to my best friend in times of crisis, and now she's at the center of this storm. I feel isolated, with no one to turn to who can truly understand the depth of this betrayal. I'm also concerned about the professional implications of this situation. As a lawyer, I've worked hard to build a reputation of integrity and trust. While this is a personal matter, I worry about how it might affect my career if word gets out. The legal community can be small, and gossip travels fast. There's also the practical aspect to consider. We've built a life together over the past decade. Shared finances, a home, friends. Untangling all of this seems like an overwhelming task. The thought of going through a divorce, especially one that might become messy given the circumstances, is daunting. I find myself oscillating between numbness and intense pain. There are moments when I feel nothing, as if I'm watching someone else's life fall apart. Then there are times when the pain is so acute, so all-consuming, that I can barely breathe. I know I need to make decisions about my marriage, about my relationship with my former best friend, about my role, if any, in the children's lives. But every time I try to think about the future, I feel paralyzed. How do you move forward when your entire past feels like a lie? I'm also grappling with the concept of forgiveness. Right now, it seems impossible. The betrayal is too fresh, too painful, but I wonder if I'll ever reach a point where I can forgive them, if not for their sake, then for my own peace of mind. I could use some advice, or even just some words of support. How do I even begin to process this level of betrayal? How do I rebuild my life when everything I thought I knew has been shattered? Has anyone else experienced something similar? How did you cope? How did you move forward? I know I'm strong. I know I've overcome challenges before, but this feels different. This feels like it's broken something fundamental within me, and I'm not sure how to put the pieces back together. Any guidance, any words of wisdom would be deeply appreciated. I'm lost in a storm of emotions, and I'm desperately seeking a way to navigate through this darkness. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since my last post. Thank you all for your support. It's been a lifeline during this nightmare. I am still reeling from discovering my husband's decade-long affair with my best friend, and that her 3 children are his. The past fortnight has been a blur of pain, anger, and confusion. The confrontation with my husband was brutal. He confessed everything. The affair started just before our wedding. My best friend had cold feet about her marriage, and he was there to comfort her. They got in too deep and couldn't stop. When I asked why he went through with our wedding, his answer made me sick. He claimed he loved us both and couldn't bear to hurt either of us. So he chose to lie to us both for over a decade. He admitted knowing from the start that the first child was his. They had planned to end the affair then, but couldn't. When the second and third children came, they just kept the charade going. The most painful part was his attempt to justify his actions. He brought up my decision not to have children, implying it drove him to seek that experience elsewhere. I was furious. He had always said he was okay with not having kids. His attempt to shift blame only reinforced how little respect he had for me and our marriage. I haven't spoken directly to my former best friend since the day I found out. She's reached out multiple times, calls, texts, even a handwritten letter. I haven't responded. Her letter was full of apologies and explanations. She wrote about feeling guilty all these years, wanting to tell me, but fearing losing everything. Reading it stirred up a complex mix of emotions, anger, betrayal, and a grief for the friendship I thought we had. I'm still unsure about the children. They're innocent, and I still love them. But seeing them now would be too painful. I'm their stepmother and aunt, but also somehow a stranger. My best friend's ex-husband reached out. We met for coffee, united by our shared betrayal. It was a difficult conversation, full of awkward silences and shared pain. We've agreed to keep in touch, to support each other if we can. Work has been both a distraction and a struggle. I've started seeing a therapist, which is helping me process my emotions. I've moved out of our house temporarily. Being surrounded by memories was too much. The divorce process has begun. My husband isn't contesting anything, which is the least he can do. I'm letting my lawyer handle most of it. I'm still angry and hurt. There are moments when the pain is so intense I can hardly breathe. But I'm also starting to feel a determination to survive this, to not let their betrayal define my life. I don't know what the future holds or if I'll ever trust again, but I'm taking it one day at a time. Sometimes 1 hour at a time. Thank you again for your support. If anyone has been through something similar, I'd love to hear how you rebuilt and how long it took before the pain started to lessen. I'll update again when I can. For now, I'm just trying to keep breathing, keep moving forward, even when it feels impossible. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and I've received news that has thrown me into a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. My former best friend has been diagnosed with aggressive late-stage cancer. Her sister informed me, and the prognosis is grim. They're talking in terms of months, not years. I never thought I'd feel so conflicted about such news. Part of me is still angry over her betrayal, but another part remembers our decades of friendship. It's unsettling to grapple with both resentment and concern for someone who hurt me so deeply. The ethical dilemma I'm facing is overwhelming. Do I reach out to her? Do I offer support to the woman who betrayed me in the worst possible way? And what about the children, my husband's children? They're facing the prospect of losing their mother, and I'm torn between my anger and concern for their well-being. My therapist is helping me navigate these complex emotions, reminding me that it's okay to feel conflicted. She's encouraged me to take my time in deciding how to respond, emphasizing that there's no right answer in a situation like this. My ex-husband called when he heard the news. He was distraught, torn between his guilt and his concern for the mother of his children. He asked if I would consider being there for the kids when the worst happens. I didn't know how to respond. These children, who I loved as my own, who I now know are biologically related to me. How do I navigate this complex web of relationships? I've been thinking a lot about forgiveness lately, not for them, but for my own peace of mind. My therapist says that forgiveness doesn't mean condoning what they did, but rather freeing myself from the burden of anger and resentment. It's a nice idea in theory, but in practice, it feels impossibly difficult. The children are weighing heavily on my mind. They're innocent in all of this, and they're about to go through something incredibly difficult. I still care about their well-being, but I'm also afraid of the pain that comes with seeing them, afraid of the responsibility, afraid of being hurt again. After much soul-searching, I've decided to visit my former best friend in the hospital. I don't know what I'm going to say, or how I'll react when I see her. I'm not doing this for her, or even for forgiveness. I'm doing it for closure, for the kids, and for the person I want to be. I'm also considering taking a more active role in the children's lives. It won't be easy, but they're innocent and about to lose their mother. If I can provide any stability or comfort, don't I have a responsibility to do so? The divorce proceedings feel less important in light of recent events. Work has been a challenge, but my boss has been supportive and allowed me time off. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of a precipice. The anger and hurt are still there, but they're now mixed with pity, concern, a sense of duty, and a tiny glimmer of what might be forgiveness. I don't know if I'm making the right decisions, but I'm trying to approach this impossible situation with as much grace and compassion as I can muster. Thank you all for your support. I'll update again after I've visited the hospital. Wish me luck. I think I'm going to need it. Update 3. 2 weeks have passed since my last update, and the situation has evolved rapidly. My former best friend's condition has deteriorated significantly, with doctors saying she doesn't have much time left. This news has intensified the emotional roller coaster I've been on. I visited her in the hospital, as mentioned in my last update. Walking into that room was one of the hardest things I've ever done. The woman lying in that bed barely resembled the vibrant person I once knew. Cancer has ravaged her body, leaving her frail and weak. When she saw me, we both burst into tears. For a moment, all the anger and betrayal melted away, replaced by profound sadness for the loss of our friendship and her impending death. We talked for hours. She apologized repeatedly, explaining her actions without trying to justify them. I listened, really listened, for the first time since this all began. I can't say I've forgiven her entirely, but I felt a shift in my heart. Seeing her so vulnerable has put things into a new perspective. Life is fragile and short. While the pain of betrayal remains, it's now mingled with compassion and a sense of life's complexity. The most challenging part was seeing the children. The oldest, 14 feuds, recognized me immediately and threw herself into my arms, sobbing. The younger two, 11M and 8M, were more hesitant, but remembered me as their aunt and seemed glad to see a familiar face. Interacting with these children, my husband's children, stirred up a whirlwind of emotions. There's still hurt and anger, yes, but also a deep love that I realize has never really gone away. They're innocent in all of this, and seeing their pain as they face losing their mother broke something open inside me. My ex-husband was also there. Our interaction was awkward, but we managed a civil conversation about the children's future. He asked again if I would be willing to be part of their lives. This time, looking at their tear-stained faces, I found myself nodding. I don't know exactly what that will look like, but I know I can't abandon them. This experience has sparked a lot of introspection. I've realized that while I can't change what happened, I can choose how I respond to it. The anger and bitterness I've been carrying around have been eating away at me. It doesn't mean what they did was okay, but holding on to that pain isn't serving me anymore. I've started to think about what I want my life to look like moving forward. For so long, I've been defined by my career and relationships. Now, I have a chance to redefine myself. It's scary, but also somewhat liberating. My therapist has been invaluable through this process. She's helping me work through my feelings about potentially taking a more active role in the children's lives. It's complex. I'm not their mother, but I'm not just their father's ex-wife either. We're trying to figure out what a healthy relationship might look like. Work has taken a backseat for now. My boss continues to be understanding, and I'm grateful for the flexibility. I'm considering taking an extended leave of absence to focus on my personal life and being there for the children during this difficult time. The divorce proceedings are still ongoing, but they feel less adversarial now. My ex-husband and I are both focused on what's best for the children. It's a strange sort of truce, born out of tragedy. I feel like I'm standing at a crossroads. The path forward isn't clear, but for the first time in months, I feel a sense of purpose. It's not the life I imagined for myself, but maybe it's one where I can make a positive difference. Thank you all for your continued support. I'll update again when I can. Update 4. It's been a week since my former best friend passed away. The last few days have been a whirlwind of emotions and difficult conversations. I wanted to share this update as I process everything that's happened. I was there in her final moments. Despite all the pain and betrayal, I couldn't bear the thought of her dying alone. As I sat by her bedside, holding her hand, years of memories flashed through my mind, both the good and the bad. She was barely conscious, but she managed to whisper, "I'm sorry, and take care of them." Those were her last words. In that moment, I felt a strange mix of grief, anger, and forgiveness. The woman I once called my best friend was gone, and with her, the possibility of ever fully reconciling our broken relationship. Yet, as I watched her slip away, I realized that holding on to my anger wouldn't change anything. It was a profound, heartbreaking moment of letting go. The funeral was yesterday. Seeing the children's grief-stricken faces was almost unbearable. The oldest clung to me throughout the service, while the boys seemed lost and confused. My ex-husband was there too, struggling to comfort the kids while dealing with his own complex emotions. After the service, my ex-husband and I had a long talk about the children's future. It was the most civil conversation we've had since this whole ordeal began. We both agreed that the kids' well-being has to be our top priority now. He asked me again if I would be willing to be part of their lives. This time, I didn't hesitate. These children have lost their mother, and regardless of the circumstances, I've loved them for years. I can't abandon them now. We're still working out the details, but we've agreed on shared custody, It's not a conventional arrangement, but then again, nothing about this situation is conventional. I'm nervous about taking on this responsibility, but I also feel a sense of purpose that I haven't felt in months. My therapist has been helping me work through my feelings about this decision. She reminds me that it's okay to still feel hurt and angry at times, even as I move forward. Healing isn't linear, and I'm learning to be patient with myself. I'm taking an extended leave from work to focus on helping the kids through this transition. My boss has been incredibly understanding, and I'm grateful for the support of my colleagues. As for my relationship with my ex-husband, we're committed to co-parenting, but reconciliation is off the table. Too much has happened, and we both need to move forward. It's a delicate balance, but we're both committed to making it work for the kids' sake. This journey has taught me so much about forgiveness, not as a gift to others, but as a way to free myself. I'm not there yet, but I'm on the path. I'm learning that life rarely goes as planned, but sometimes the unexpected turns can lead to profound growth. Thank you all for your support throughout this ordeal. Your kind words and shared experiences have been a source of strength. I'll update again as we navigate this new chapter. Update 5. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I can hardly believe how much has changed. The children have been living with me for the past 2 months, and it's been a whirlwind of emotions, challenges, and unexpected joys. The early days were tough. The kids were still grieving their mother, and I was navigating my new role as their primary caregiver. The oldest has been my rock through this, helping with chores and looking after her brothers. The boys have had a harder time adjusting, but we're making progress. Balancing work and family life has been challenging. I've returned to my law practice part-time, working mostly from home. My firm has been incredibly supportive, allowing me this flexibility. Still, there are days when I feel overwhelmed, trying to be a good lawyer and a good parent simultaneously. My relationship with the kids is evolving. I'm not trying to replace their mother. I know I can't and shouldn't. Instead, I'm working on building a new kind of relationship with them. We have our moments of laughter and joy, but also times of tension and tears. It's a learning process for all of us. The 14-year-old and I have developed a close bond. She often comes to me for advice or just to talk. The 11-year-old is still struggling. He has outbursts of anger sometimes, missing his mom and confused about the situation. We've started him in therapy, which seems to be helping. The 8-year-old is more adaptable, but still has nights where he cries for his mother. My ex-husband is still involved in their lives. We've managed to establish a co-parenting relationship that, while not perfect, is functional. The kids spend every other weekend with him. It's strange to see him now. The anger I felt has largely subsided, replaced by a kind of detached cordiality. This experience has taught me so much about myself. I've discovered reserves of strength and patience I never knew I had. I've also had to confront my own insecurities and fears. There are days when I doubt myself, wondering if I'm doing the right thing. But then one of the kids will give me a hug or share a small victory, and I know I'm where I need to be. I've learned that family isn't just about blood relations. It's about choice, commitment, and love. These children may not be biologically mine, but they've become my family in every way that matters. My perspective on forgiveness has shifted dramatically. I've realized that forgiving isn't about condoning what happened, but about freeing myself from the burden of anger and resentment. It's a daily choice, and some days are harder than others, but I'm getting there. Looking to the future, I feel a mix of hope and trepidation. I know there will be challenges ahead, but I'm committed to facing these challenges head-on. I'm also starting to think about my own personal growth and happiness. I've recently joined a support group for non-traditional families, which has been incredibly helpful. To those who are facing similar situations, know that it's okay to take it one day at a time. It's okay to make mistakes and learn from them. The path isn't always clear, but with patience and love, it is possible to build something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal and loss. Thank you all for being part of this journey with me. Your support has meant more than you know. We're focusing on building our new life together, one day at a time.